A review copy of this game was provided by Nintendo. Okay, I'm gonna end there.
What the?
Kirby Air Riders might be the first Switch 2 game that feels truly next-gen. DK came close. The whole voxel-based break-anything system is super impressive, and there are definitely some textures and little lighting details that feel pretty advanced. But beyond that, it isn't too hard to see that the game began life as a Switch 1 title. Like, it's fairly easy to picture some form of it running on Switch 1. And honestly, the resolution isn't always that sharp, and of course, the frame rate struggles from time to time. Then Mario Kart World came really close as well, probably even closer. The game does look great, and the huge open world is really impressive, but it's kinda the same thing. Like, we had open world games on Switch, right? I have no doubt that the experience would have been very compromised on Switch 1, but there's still nothing about it that's like, whoa, now this is next gen. Kirby Air Riders offers perfection on every level. The visuals are so striking, the effects are superb, the texture work and the lighting are great. The tracks are so richly detailed with so many moving parts, so much animation, so much going on. And yet everything runs at a flawless, buttery, unshakable, etc., 60 FPS frame rate at all times. The image is crystal clear, sharp as a pin, impressive on its own, but even more so when you consider just how fast the game is. Everything, every element moves at breakneck speed. Even the load times, they're really fast. There's like no downtime, which is particularly helpful since this game offers a lot of short bursts of gameplay and you're always moving to something new that has to load in. Like, obviously a version of this game could have also been made to run on Switch if they absolutely needed it to, but when it looks this good and runs this well and moves this fast with essentially zero compromises, I can say that this is the first time I've booted up a Switch 2 game and been like, oh no, yeah, this is a Switch 2 game. And of course, even beyond the impressive technical aspect, the art design is magnificent. Even the simpler elements, like the characters, they just pop in some way they never have before. It's something about the lighting and the color palette. Oh, the colors in this game are just incredible. And then of course, the sharp image. I don't know, it's like they're real. It's like I could just reach into the screen and poke them. But if you're really gonna talk about the visuals in this game, you're gonna be talking about the courses themselves. Leave it to Sakurai and the actual magical wizards he works with to take the Kirby universe, which is already so imaginative, so grand and fantastical, and somehow blow it up, perhaps even bigger than it's ever been. The most surreal and gorgeous environments, places so beautiful, it almost hurts that they're not real. And you only get to see them for mere moments at a time. Impossibly dynamic terrain, shining crystalline structures, gargantuan trees and flowers, bizarre futuristic highways. It's so much to take in, I almost feel spoiled. It's like a big fancy 12-course meal that I wolfed down in 2 minutes. But of course, that's part of the appeal, right? I'm always saying how my favorite tracks in racing games are the ones that are like roller coasters, and this game is essentially an amusement park. The speed, the tight, twisty turns, the extreme highs and lows, the rails that just zip you all over the place in a flash. It's almost stimulation overload, you know? It's almost like, have video games gone too far? Maybe. Is this a little bit too much? Is this too cool? And predictably, this being a Sakurai joint, every visual element is perfect. Very much including the UI, really. No one does UI like Sakurai. It's so zippy, it's perfectly laid out. It communicates everything it needs to without overwhelming me with unnecessary data and visual noise. I mean, really, like, the rest of the entire industry could learn something from these menus. At first, I thought it was a little strange that they went with such a comparatively tame theme for the main menu, like it's this big, crazy, visual spectacle racing game, but then the menu is like cards and files laid out on a desk. Really? But no, this was another stroke of genius. The game is so chaotic, so visually stimulating, that this offers a much-needed palate cleanser between activities. There's a simplicity to it that's really elegant and charming. And that is despite the fact that there's a whole lot going on in these menus. Again, it's Sakurai, so it shouldn't come as a surprise, but outside of Smash, off the top of my head, I can't name another Nintendo game that is so rich with options and features. No matter what mode you're playing, you've got basically every option you could ever want. Any little way you'd like to tweak the experience so it better suits your needs or the needs of your friend group, you've probably got it. None of this, we designed the game to be played this way, so that's how you're gonna play it, darn it, that plagues so many other Nintendo titles. Online or offline, the game is yours. And that includes a wealth of control options, visual options, and accessibility options, which is sadly rare for Nintendo, isn't it? Especially considering how shockingly bare bones Nintendo's other first-party racing game on Switch 2 is when it comes to options, despite the fact that it's going to sell 10 times the units as this one, at least. Such customizability is a breath of fresh air and makes multiplayer that much more enjoyable. But I'll talk more about multiplayer in a bit. Speaking of customization, I am shocked by all the extras Air Riders offers. Like, you dig through these menus for the first time, and it just never ends. You earn in-game currency called miles, and you use this to buy anything and everything so you can customize anything and everything. You can change a machine's colors, patterns, accessories, decals, effects, and sounds, and you can fine-tune most of it in the most minute ways to make some really incredible designs. The online machine marketplace makes designing stuff even more fun, naturally. You can find some really amazing designs, you can list your own, and the more popular a machine is, the more expensive it gets. That's such a fun idea. You can even display all your favorites in your little garage. Why? I don't know, it's just to look at them, so they sit there and you can look at them sometimes. Wait, no, you can even buy different garages? Why? I don't know. 'Cause it's fun. Oh, and don't forget about the hats. You can also get hats for your riders. Why? Why? There's already so much customization in the machine itself, and there's already so many riders. Why do we need hats too? Well, because hats is just more. And more is just better. Then you got your license card as well. There's like a million different bits to earn or buy, so you can, soup up a really cool license. Like, I watched both directs, but there was just so much to take in that this all still feels kind of surprising to me. Discovering each feature and actually having time to process it. Like, okay, you can save replays. Not too crazy, I guess, but apparently the game saves them automatically for you. I played online with friends and I was bummed that I didn't capture the footage. But then I found this menu and discovered that every race and match was saved. The game can store a pretty darn good number of replays before it starts to delete the old ones, and you can permanently save whatever you want. And these aren't just recordings, these are real replays, so you can change the speed and focus on different racers. Oh, and you can even cut clips together to make little movies. You can put together all the best parts of a race or a city trial or whatever and share it online, and you can go watch clips and movies that other players have uploaded. And gummies. You can collect gummies that are shaped like the different machines, and they don't do anything. They don't do nothing. You literally just pile them up and fling them around and think about how tasty they look. Why? Dare I ask? Why? Well, because Sakurai is a madman. That's why. Because if he had an idea for this game, he included it. Full stop. Look, I know, like, looking at all of these features, no individual feature is, like, particularly groundbreaking, like something that no other game has ever done before. But I've just been playing Nintendo games for so long, and them not including features that you might want is just, it's so normal. It's so natural. So to get so many features and so many options and like basically no caveats, it's all just kind of good, and the game makes sure that you can play the game any way that you want and enjoy it to its absolute fullest potential. It shouldn't be as novel and refreshing as it is, but yeah, I don't know. That's just the world we live in, I guess. This do everything possible philosophy naturally extends to the gameplay modes. Air Ride is your basic racing mode, and here you can race using your own custom rules. Scrolling through the rules, of course I am slightly shocked, you can set all these different parameters, and it's almost like you've got access to a list of sub-modes. You can do a relay race where you swap between machines. You can do a timed race where you go for score instead of placement. You can set it so that taking too much damage will knock you out of the race entirely. And of course, there's all these other little tweaks you can do. You can set it to 99 laps. If you want to. Then you've got your time attack, more on that in a second, and you've even got a free run where you can go at your own pace to learn a track, and it keeps track of your individual lap records, so you can like casually shoot for records whenever you want, which is really neat. And that's just Air Ride. Top Ride has gotten a massive glow up over the original, I hear. All the customizability of the other modes, all the options, online play, time attack, free run. I think free run is particularly good here. It's really fun to just kind of casually float around and then go for a lap record whenever you want to. It's really fun to fine-tune a lap when you can get through it so quickly. Then City Trial, same thing. Great list of options, free run, and the ability to just play the individual stadium events from City Trial, if you so please. That's nice. Okay, yeah, so then across all three modes, the game keeps track of your personal best times for both time attack and free run for each individual track and for each individual machine on each individual track. This, it's not really my kind of thing. I am not a score chaser, but if you like racing the clock and fine-tuning your skill and perfecting every lap on every track, then happy birthday. And where I hear the selection of riders and machines was pretty limited in the original game, the same cannot be said this time. There are tons of characters to choose from, each with their own stats and specials. But I'm really impressed by the machines. There are several categories and so many unique machines within each category. They function in such wildly different ways that I'm baffled the devs were able to balance everything so well. I haven't played enough online to know if there's like a meta or anything, like some machines that are absolutely broken and need nerfing. But even just the fact that on the surface, the game functions perfectly with so many different forms of unique movement tech is really impressive. I'm pretty basic. I usually stick with the simple stuff because I don't know, I'm not that good. I want a good balance. But there's obviously so much room for experimentation, so much technical skill to be gained for those wanting to dive into the game head first. So far, I've heaped a heck of a lot of praise onto this game, but we haven't really talked about how it plays and what I think about each game mode. Well, if you want to boil it down, Kirby Air Riders is about simple gameplay that caters to anyone with a high skill ceiling that caters to the more serious crowd. Sorta like Smash, but I would argue that even that takes a while to get used to when you first start out. It's very unlike most other fighting games. Air Riders is rooted in utmost simplicity when it comes to controls. Most of the action happens thanks to the control stick and just one button. B is default. Your machine moves automatically, so you don't have to hold down anything, and when you want to drift around a tight corner, you hold B, which usually slows you down and builds up a boost that happens when you let go of the button. It was a really unique style when the original released, and somehow it's still rather unique, even over 20 years later. It doesn't just set itself apart from Mario Kart, it kind of sets itself apart from everything. There's still not much like it out there. It's really interesting because the game is otherwise very fast, and yet you've got this dynamic where you're always slowing down and then jetting off again, over and over. Different machines handle drifting differently, but most of them will come to a full stop if you hold the button long enough. So it's simple because it just uses one button, but it's also pretty tricky because obviously you want to slow down as little as possible, so the exact timing matters a lot. Start drifting too early and it can really throw you off. This also means that getting it exactly right and getting a big boost right out of a really tight corner feels amazing. I'm speaking as a racing and air ride casual, so I could be wrong, but I feel like this makes races somewhat more dynamic than they usually are in other racing games, at least when it comes to the basic movement mechanics. There's so much more variability in each turn, so players have way more opportunities to either get ahead or fall behind. even when they're not being affected by peripheral mechanics like items and power-ups, which are what usually would introduce a lot of that variability. So again, it's simple, but also technically deep, with a relatively high skill ceiling, especially when you factor in the different riders and machines and combinations of the two. There are some items here and there that you can just pick up and use, kind of depends on the mode, but for the most part, instead of traditional cart-style items, tracks are filled with enemies. Suck up and spit out, or otherwise defeat a basic enemy, and you get a little boost. Suck up a special enemy, and you get a temporary copy ability. These can be used to hit enemies and opponents alike, both of which give you a speed boost. Another way this game puts a unique spin on the genre is by putting less of an emphasis on slowing down other players. It feels like it's a little bit more about boosting yourself. You know, you're not just fighting your opponents, you're also fighting all of these enemies on the stage. You do slow down when you get hit, but it is nothing compared to the agonizing, infuriating feeling of getting hit with a bunch of red shells in a row. If it amounts to the same thing in the end, it probably shouldn't feel so different, and yet it does. It's a psychological thing. This is just less frustrating and makes you hate your friends less when they nail you with a good attack. I also absolutely love how this game handles drafting. Instead of just getting a speed boost by driving right behind an opponent, each racer actually leaves a trail of stars that acts like a little slipstream. Mario Kart is really big on rubber banding, which again, is kind of fun, but also kind of frustrating. But this is a much more natural way to help players not fall too far behind. It's giving them a little help to catch up again without it feeling like the game is just cheating them back up into the fray by feeding them the best items. It's another subtle psychological thing that keeps everyone happy and having a good time. It keeps players neck and neck a lot of the time and leads to some very, very close finishes, which is very exciting. And if you are right up against another racer and want to knock him around a little bit, the final action you can perform is a spin attack. You can use this against enemies and opponents, as well as to open boxes and fight bosses and stuff in other modes. Perhaps predictably, there is no button for your spin attack. Instead, you wiggle the control stick back and forth. Sakurai tried really hard to not rely on too many buttons when designing this gameplay. He seems to have only reluctantly included a second face button in this game, and it's only used for initiating a character's special. Everything else is still just the B button or the stick. Even copy abilities will either trigger automatically when you're close enough to an enemy or an opponent or a box or whatever, or, big surprise, you gotta hit that B button again. Control simplicity was clearly a design pillar that Sakurai stuck to very closely. One of the foundational ideas that the gameplay was built upon. I think he is a genius designer and has crafted an exceptional experience here. But, if I am honest, I don't think this was the right call, and I don't think it does the game any favors. I'm sure all of this comes with enough practice. It's probably not even a problem for most people, but as an Air Ride newcomer, I can pretty firmly say that I don't like this whole use as few buttons as possible thing, even after playing for a good while. I've never liked it in other Nintendo games, and I do not like it here. I feel like it creates more problems than it solves. For starters, wiggling the stick to spin does not feel good. It just doesn't. Fortunately, it doesn't trigger accidentally as much as I feared it might, but there's still something about the action that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know if you've noticed, but steering is pretty darn important. And when you spin, you have to totally forget about steering for a second. You can adjust the sensitivity, but no matter what, I never quite know how many wiggles it's gonna take. And doing it multiple times in a row is particularly uncomfortable. It just feels so sluggish and awkward. But the worst thing is how so many actions are tied to the B button, which is also the brake. You gotta hit B to suck up enemies, but the suck animation only happens when you're close enough to an enemy. It's purely contextual. If your timing is off, if you suck too much to suck properly, you hit the brake for no good reason. And if you're only tapping it really briefly, it's not like you're gonna come grinding to a halt or anything, but there's still this thing in my brain that's just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. And if you have a copy ability, some attacks are automatic, and some aren't, and you have to just try and remember which is which. More contextual actions here, and again, if you get it wrong, you're hitting the brake for no good reason. And the game is so fast that I find myself just constantly trying to figure out exactly when I should be hitting the button while I'm also hitting the button for all of these other actions. And even when I get it right, it just kinda stinks that to attack, a lot of the time, I've gotta hit the brake button, even if it's just these little bits at a time. I just wish I could attack as an independent action, and whenever I want. I can kind of see the thinking behind it. Tying some attacks to your braking and drifting is maybe a way to balance them, I think. You kind of limit their usage to certain moments, like when you're going around a turn, you can't just use them willy-nilly. And maybe, in theory, there could be something beneficial about only using one button. Maybe? Or like the limitation, the give and take is part of the strategy. It's a system you just gotta get to grips with if you want to be good at the game. That's where the skill is. But man, I just don't like it. I totally recognize that this is a skill issue. Obviously, I'm sure I would get it down pat eventually, but I have to enjoy a system to want to really practice with it. And I mean, I have been practicing, I have been playing, sure, but I don't know. I just don't think it's a very good system at the end of the day. Piling everything onto one button and trying to compensate by having all of these contextual actions definitely had the potential to work really well. Nail something like this, and you've got a system that is particularly intuitive, almost magically so. Something that works so well and allows you to do so much, even with really simple inputs. But I do not think they nailed it. I think it's awkward and kind of uncomfortable, and ends up swinging the other way and feeling unintuitive. I mentioned that when it comes to options and modes and whatnot, this game doesn't present any of those pesky design philosophy differences where you're forced to play the game a certain way because that was part of the original vision. But yeah, one of those things did sneak its way into this game, at least for me. When it comes to the gameplay itself, this is one of those cases. I do not get the vision here. I think it just makes the game less fun. That's not to say that I dislike the gameplay overall. There's so much about it that I really do love. It is very, very fun. It is very snappy, very satisfying, so refined, so incredibly fine-tuned. But let's talk more about those main modes and my experiences with this gameplay within them. Top Ride is much simpler, and obviously you don't get the benefit of all the crazy roller coaster action and the graphics and everything. But wow, I can say that this is definitely where the game feels the most comfortable to play. There's so much less emphasis on copy abilities and items. It's practically all about the drifting and handling. So it's really basic. The tracks are really small. You can zoom out the camera so that you can see them all at once, so there are no surprising turns. The matches are so short that you can burn through a bunch of them super fast. And it's another palate cleanser to mitigate some of the stimulation overload. It's really a genius idea, the kind I do not know if I would have ever thought of, and yet it fits so incredibly well. It's basically just a simpler, cuter version of the main game, and it's a perfect addition. I can't say I strictly like it more than the traditional racing, even if it is a little bit more comfortable and intuitive. But when it comes up, I do appreciate it so much. It really is a lot of fun. Then there's the star attraction, the mode that single-handedly made people fall in love with the original air ride, City Trial. The idea is that players zoom around this city collecting power-ups that increase the stats of their machines in several categories. There are different machines lying around so players can swap out if they want, and they can even damage and destroy their opponent's machines. Special events will happen that offer mini competitions or introduce new hazards and all around give players a chance to pick up extra power-ups. Then after 5 minutes, everyone enters a stadium contest with their souped-up machines. There are lots of these, and they're basically minigames. Press the most buttons, collect the most food, glide and land on the highest point target, just race, just fight each other, fight a boss, whole lot of stuff. Whoever comes out on top wins the whole thing. I'm a little bit torn here. I think the idea of the mode is great fun. I love how these rounds are so fast, so you can fit a whole bunch of them into one play session. I love this big city. It's got all these different biomes, and they look really cool. The whole thing is very intense. Everything is so crazy. And the process of making your machine stronger and faster and better at gliding and everything in real time until you're just zipping and flying around everywhere is really satisfying. Oh, and you want to talk satisfying? If someone's machine is damaged, you can ram into them to simultaneously blow it up and like fix it and steal it for yourself. And I think even the biggest hater of this game would probably bump the score up an entire point just because of how good this feels to do. This one action itself deserves a prize at the Game Awards. I mean, it's pure ecstasy. But then a lot of my problems with the controls really stand out in this mode, especially when you start to pump those stats way up. Trying to slow down enough to grab certain items or break boxes can be kind of annoying. Same with fighting other players or CPUs. You're in these little arenas and it's so hard to stop and turn around and wiggle the stick at just the right moment. The chaos isn't all bad. It can be silly and fun in its own way when all these machines have powered up way too much and players can barely even control them anymore. But yeah, also kind of frustrating, and I just feel like it could be less frustrating with less frustrating controls. And then I just don't quite like how you put all this effort into building this machine. It didn't take a long time, but it felt kind of long because it was just non-stop crazy the entire 5 minutes. And then you do one single stadium contest and that's it. It might not even be one that utilizes your machine's strengths. It definitely helps that there are options here. You can choose to either have everyone vote on one contest or everyone can kind of pick their own, but each of those options comes with downsides. It just seems a little anticlimactic sometimes after all the effort. Air Riders does introduce one brand new mode, Road Trip. This is genius because, one, it's of course always good to have single-player content, especially some sort of campaign, and two, it cleverly utilizes all of the variety found within all of the other modes. As a primarily single player, I was greatly looking forward to this mode, especially because it seemed to have some kind of story attached with cool cutscenes. Well, let's touch on the story first. The marketing material showed a bunch of clips of animated cutscenes, and my hope was that these were merely bits found in a series of greater cutscenes, cut together just for the trailers and the directs, and that the whole thing would play out a la Subspace Emissary, maybe? But sadly, no. These clips really are just clips for the most part, and play just like they did in the marketing. This is not a big, grand adventure with lots of cinematics. However, there are at least some cutscenes though, and big surprise, the story is super duper cool. It's almost too cool. Really. Like, it's so grand that it feels like it does belong in a bigger campaign. It's so epic that it really could have used a lot more room to breathe. Here, you mainly get a little series of memories that you've got to collect across a campaign that takes maybe a couple hours to beat on lower difficulties. And, no spoilers, of course, mechanically, I do have some issues with the last boss, but overall, the ending sequence is phenomenal. The game's presentation really shines at the end in particular, and I can only imagine Kirby lore enthusiasts are leaning back in their seats and rubbing their tummies right now. But I mean, yeah, it's Sakurai. What did we expect? The man delivers. As for the mode itself, for the most part, I think it's a great idea. In each stage, you cruise down the road and come upon these challenges, and you can choose which one you want to take on. There are so many modes in this game, so many varieties of gameplay and rule sets and everything, and this pulls from literally all of it. The basic races, top rides, city trial, and all its bosses and stadium contests, just everything. And if I have a problem with the idea of building up a cool machine and then immediately losing it in city trial, Road Trip fixes this. Here, you slowly accumulate these stat boosts, and you get to pick and choose which ones you want to go after. Sometimes on the road, you'll hit a rest stop and get to just choose one outright, or there'll be little treasure chests you can grab. They're really just all over the place. And your machine starts out really slow and weak, which can be a little bit frustrating at first, but then watching it get better and seeing like a tangible difference as you go along, it feels so awesome. There's even a Waddle Dee shop where you can spend the money you earn on stat boosts and items and new machines. And in this mode, you'll fight much bigger boss battles with final bosses from a bunch of Kirby games, which is obviously really cool. In each stage at some point, you'll pick up an item or make a friend, and when you get to the end, what you pick will determine which stage you go to next. It's a lot like Star Fox 64. There are different paths to take, and you can't hit them all in one run. And there are also like a surprising number of stages here. I was a little worried that this might lead to a lot of mostly redundant playthroughs, and I would have to keep careful track of which items I picked or use a guide or something. But the game is actually really good at letting you know which items you've picked in the past, and it also shows you which stages still have new machines in them in case you want to collect them all and go for the true final boss and ending. Ooh, that's not a spoiler, right? I don't think that's a spoiler. It's a Kirby game. Of course there's a true final boss and ending. You can complete Road Trip in a few hours, though obviously higher difficulties are probably gonna take you a good bit longer, I imagine. When you complete a run, you can start a new game plus, and it carries over a bunch of your money and unlocked machines and stuff. So it's a pretty compact and very replayable mode. It's not really a roguelite per se, but it really leans on the whole choose one of 3 perks idea. It's very arcadey and gives you a whole ton of stuff to do if you're just absolutely in love with the gameplay, and especially if you want to challenge yourself with the higher difficulties. I will admit though, while I did have fun with the mode, and I love how it takes everything the game does and condenses it down into a single player experience with a cool story, this was also where some of my frustrations with the game were at their absolute worst. There are a lot of challenges where you gotta navigate smaller spaces or take a lot of sharp turns and try and hit a switch or attack an opponent or break a box or something. And the overly simplistic control scheme combined with the hyper-furious stop-start gameplay is kind of a pain. It's not really conducive to some of these challenges. Anytime you gotta fine-tune, you gotta hit something precisely, where you're just sailing past it and screeching to a halt and turning and shooting for it again and again. And all the while you're grappling with the one button that does all of these functions. It can be really frustrating. Sometimes things get so hectic I can barely tell what's going on or what I should be doing, so I end up just mashing B and wiggling the stick and hoping something lands. And it's pretty much impossible for every single challenge to be perfectly balanced so that every possible combination of machines and stats works equally well. So sometimes I'll hit a challenge that I just cannot do, and I have to go back to a previous checkpoint. So, overall, I really did enjoy my time with Road Trip, but there were plenty of times when it just wasn't working for me. There were actually a couple of times when, if I'm completely honest, I started to feel like maybe these controls are a deal breaker. Maybe this gameplay really isn't for me. I wanted to like this game so badly, and I can see the artistry that went into it. And in so many ways, it does everything exactly right. But maybe I'm kidding myself. Maybe I don't actually really truly like it all that much. And then I played online. Playing with other people changes everything. I should have seen this coming. The people who loved the original Air Ride are the people who had sleepovers and stayed up late playing local multiplayer. Ant Dude is my #1 Kirby fan friend, and we played the Air Riders demo at PAX. And when I voiced my concerns about City Trial and how you do all this work and you just get one minigame, the stuff I mentioned earlier, his response was, "It's just fun." And I thought that was kind of a cop-out answer. It's the same excuse people use for bad movies. Just shut off your brain and have fun. But no, a thing can be fun and also good. A game is usually fun when it's good and well-designed, right? But no, it turns out he was completely right. And it's all about the human element. I do still have problems with the controls and all that, but this is a totally different game when you play it with other people. The very spirit is wildly different. Suddenly, all the craziness is nothing but a plus. The quick, throwaway nature of City Trial makes a lot more sense. I would still like the option to do more stadium contests after each one, but I have to admit that just jumping straight into the next match immediately, it does work pretty well. And all the variety is so appreciated when you're playing with other people. Anytime you get bored of one thing, do another. Spend hours on a thing or a couple of minutes. Do Air Ride for a bit. Try it with all these different options and variants I mentioned. Do City Trial however many times you want. Do Top Ride when you want a super quick cooldown. Set up any game however you want. And oh man, it's still early days, but between Drag and Drive and Air Riders, it's clear that Nintendo is really stepping up their online game this generation. And yes, I said Drag and Drive. It doesn't have nearly enough like features and options and stuff, but it's got this really incredibly cool, like freeform hangout lobby. And this right here is the paddock. Apparently having a cool lobby to hang out in is somehow becoming a new standard. Here, a bunch of people can hang out. You can pick whatever character and hat you want. Every character controls differently, so you can jump around all over the place and be all silly. You can set up whatever game you want with whatever rules, and you can even split off and have multiple games going at once and spectate a game that you're not playing. You can enter public paddocks, or if any of your friends are online, theirs are just right there waiting for you. And of course, if you don't feel like setting up a Discord call or whatever, you've got game chat built right into the system. Here's another thing though. I haven't played an absolute ton online, and I'm sure the more you play, the more you'll see little hiccups here and there. But so far, my experience has been literally flawless. Literally flawless. I am not kidding. This has been, hands down, the best online experience I have ever had in any Nintendo game. No connection issues, no lag, no teleporting players, nothing. I think maybe a lot of it has to do with the gameplay. It's like really fast and chaotic, and it's probably pretty good at covering up the little hitches versus something like Splatoon, where competition is really fierce and the precise interactions between hitboxes and the timing and everything really matters. But it also really does seem to just work really super incredibly well overall. Like, you play it and it just works. It just works. You want to know how seriously the game takes its online? There's a spot in the menu where you can see how good your connection is. I'm not kidding. Seeing this in a Nintendo game is positively surreal. Playing with other people, friends in particular, obviously, is clearly how Air Riders was meant to be enjoyed. It's great that it offers a really good amount of stuff for a solitary offline player to do, but I'm not kidding. My overall opinion of the game dramatically shifted after playing with my friends. Swinging back around to that offline content though, I've already mentioned Road Trip and all the other modes and Time Attack and personal bests and stuff, but if there's anything to really work toward completing, it's the checklist, or rather the multiple checklists across all of the modes. Plenty of games offer achievements, but this one's been all soccer-eyed up. And it's another example of a really great idea that somehow has not been expanded upon in any other games that I'm aware of. Instead of a simple list, each achievement is a square on a grid that reveals part of a big picture when you get it. A cute idea on its own, certainly, but it's the sheer quantity of these achievements that makes the picture so much fun to fill in. Just by playing the game normally, you'll unlock loads and loads all the time, especially when you first start. You know, you do one race, and it's like, boom, 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 it just fills in a bunch. And they all give you stuff. They all reward you. Courses and riders and music tracks and tons of cosmetics for your machines and your license. As you play across all these modes and even online, it really feels like it never stops giving you stuff. The little tiny dopamine hits don't ever seem to stop. You're always building up all of your collections and working toward ultimate completion. Not to keep bringing up Mario Kart, but hey, Nintendo, will you please take notes? Because I like this a lot. I like having stuff to work toward, some sense of progress. I'm an entitled millennial, darn it. It's not enough to have fun. I need to be rewarded for having fun. Where's my participation medal? And of course, even here, there are all these little considerations. When you get an achievement, it reveals the conditions for the ones immediately around it, which helps guide you without overwhelming you with this massive list. Even better, you can highlight an achievement and have it take you straight to the relevant challenge so you can unlock it. Like, what? That is absurdly convenient. This is yet another way the game takes something kinda basic and beefs it up, presents it in a way that's ridiculously fun and user-friendly and just so thoughtful, And of course, it's just a bunch more stuff to do. I have been greatly enjoying Kirby Air Riders. I do have those problems with the controls, and honestly, yeah, they're decently big problems. Here you've got a game that's practically perfect, that delivers in just about every way possible, and in a lot of ways I wouldn't even have considered. Yet the very core control premise doesn't sit well with me. And unfortunately, I do think that means in the long run, it's not quite a game for me. It's not a game I see myself playing a lot, or for a very long time, or returning to much later. Much of this, if not like most or all of this, is probably due to me not being a really huge racing guy in the first place, you know? If I were, I probably would not mind spending the time to get this one down, because really, all of the rest of the gameplay and everything, it really does work really well. As it is, I'm definitely having fun now. I absolutely am. But I don't know, I guess we just gotta wait and see how far that'll carry me. I am going to play more online with friends, at the very least. I mean, even as I say this, even as I speak these words, I kind of can't wait to do some more. So I don't know. That's gotta say something. I have a really big problem with a very core element of this game, a major design pillar, and yet I kind of can't wait to play it more. Mainly though, I just appreciate what this game is and what Sakurai has achieved. He took such an old cult classic and delivered what is essentially the perfect sequel. Essentially everything that a fan of the original could possibly want, and even more. Probably a lot more. A sequel so good that the original is now basically obsolete. And a title that stands head and shoulders above its first-party Nintendo contemporaries in so many ways. In terms of options and features and content for both single and multiplayer, it basically walks up to Mario Kart and pushes it down and spits in its face. Like, Sakurai isn't even a Nintendo employee, and yet he consistently beats them at their own game whenever he makes their own games. Kirby Air Riders might be the most technically impressive first-party game on Switch 2 so far, and the most feature-rich and considerate multiplayer Nintendo game since Smash Ultimate. It's so refined, so impeccably designed, so gorgeous. It's blazingly, almost overwhelmingly fast, and yet it knows this and gives you all these little opportunities to rest and even turn down the intensity and the options if you like. Because this is a game for everyone. That's why it strives to be simple enough to pick up and start having fun with, but deep and technical enough for even the most hardcore fans. It's a game that considers and delivers just about everything it could. In many ways, I think it is a crowning achievement. An impossible amount of love given to a weird little GameCube game that didn't even review or sell that well. Yep. Kirby fans, they are eating right now. They are eating like the pink boy himself.
Time!